Hi, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Tips for Remote Customer Service Continuity in a Pandemic. My name is Peter Miles Lowe. I'm a Senior Sales Executive with Bright Pattern, and I'll be moderating the discussion today. The driving force behind hosting this webinar is the heavy outreach from our partners and our customers as they adjust to what may be the new normal for quite some time. We've seen both challenges and opportunities across various verticals like retail, hospitality, healthcare, and others. And in certain situations, the outreach from clients, customers, members, and patients has surged dramatically, and it's put considerable pressure on contact center operations. For those of you who are not in position to easily and quickly shift to that remote workforce model, this is pretty challenging. So frankly, it can be overwhelming. So I'm pretty excited to introduce our two thought leaders on the panel today as we prepare to talk through some of the common challenges, and we'll offer you some tips and best practice advice both on the technology side and also the human capital side. So if you find yourself in position to quickly need to move to a remote model, our panelists are going to have some great insight for you today. So first of all, I want to thank Sally Hurley, CEO of VIP Desk. They provide outsourced CX to many luxury brands. She's a veteran in the industry and an entrepreneur that's well known. So thank you very much, Sally, for joining.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And we also have the pleasure of having Mr. Ted Hunting on the panel too. Ted is a veteran in the industry, spent many years leading marketing teams at Genesis, also is a former board member of CCW and provides a lot of keynotes. Many of you may have seen Ted speak around the country, and we're proud to have him on our team. And he seems to be not only a product expert, but a business expert besides marketing. So thank you very much for joining, Ted.
Cool, thanks, Pete.
Yeah, so I think we should just kind of jump right into it. What I'd like to do, maybe have you address this first, Ted, and then Sally, you follow on. But Ted, why do you think cloud and BPO models are now so key to contact center operations?
So, Pete, a great question. I think it's interesting. If you think back even a year or two ago, premise-based software was really the safe option, and cloud was considered risky. And I remember hearing Gartner Symposium, the big expo they do where they have all the tech predictions every year. I remember hearing them talk about how quickly companies were going to move to the cloud. And I smiled and smirked a little bit because I thought they were being a little bit overly aggressive. But they were, as usual, they were right. And it's interesting, if you think about it now, it's a whole new world, especially in the last month. I'm amazed at how, even as we watch the news in the last week or the last couple of weeks, how things are changing so quickly. And in this new world, I think now premise actually poses more risk to business operations and even more to the health of employees and agents. So I mean, think what a dramatic shift that is to suddenly go from where premise was a safe choice, and now from a business continuity standpoint, it's really about cloud, helping both businesses and agents too. And I think as you think about it, with cloud and BPO operations, you can now deploy agents remotely at home. They can be around the world, yet you can still manage them centrally. So you get all the benefits of what was previously the premise-based solution, but now you get the nimbleness and the flexibility and the safety with cloud or BPO operations. So I think it's really all about nimbleness and flexibility. And I think BPO models provide those exact same benefits as the cloud model. So whether you're using your own cloud or you're working with a leading BPO like VIP Desk, you can realize those benefits.
Thanks, Ted. And Sally, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's funny when you say risky, Ted, we are remote and in the cloud. So I think if you go back 10 years, well, the concept of having people work from home, at least in the contact center space, was certainly beyond risky, and the cloud didn't exist. So we had people who worked at home, and we had a premise-based solution. And so, we're blessed that we have, a remote team and can operate. But I'm grateful we don't have the premise-based solution we had before. We had 2 data centers. And right now, I think putting them at risk if anything happened with the system and the team having to access the equipment, I don't even think about those things anymore. And at least we have peace of mind in the core platform. Like our all of our meetings, 12 hours a day, are all about the people and our clients' needs. So, we're not fearful about having to deal with the platform anymore. So it's so funny, Ted, that you would say, consider risky. Well, we are both. So, and now I think the world is coming around through this, horrible situation to realizing, it's quite valuable.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sally. Yeah, you're right. It's very interesting. And this crisis, I think, will likely accelerate the ongoing shift to cloud-based CX platforms. We've seen companies kind of kick that can down the road a bit, just because maybe they've had some heavy capital investment in a premise system, or they haven't figured out the right provider to go to. So I guess I'll start with you on this one too, Ted. How can you set up a cloud contact center? Is there a way to do it quickly, given the current COVID-19 pandemic? Is there a way to act quickly and decisively on something like this?
So Pete, it's interesting because it was actually, it was the first week of March, and I was on my news feed in the morning as I'm drinking my coffee early in the morning, and I saw a story. It was in Seoul, South Korea, and there were 93 contact center agents who all came down with the COVID-13. And I think it was at that point that I first realized, the intersection between COVID-19 and the contact center industry and cloud and everything that Sally just talked about. And we're really entering, it was really like a little bit of a wake-up call for how we deploy technology, how we operate as a business. And then a few days later, I got from Gartner an email where they did a survey, and almost half of all the businesses that they talked with were either severely restricted or operating at a reduced level due to COVID, the COVID virus. So, and that was 3 or 4 weeks ago. So think about how much has happened in those 3 or 4 weeks, even more change. So in terms of how to do it quickly, I think the first thing to do is, look to a BPO. I mean, if you want instant capability and you want the fastest capability, I think working with like a trusted BPO, one that actually will protect your brand, a company like a VIP desk, I think is a super way to do that. And then I think if you want to look at an in-house solution, you want to have your own cloud contact center. I think you want to have a very easy to use, a robust, scalable contact center that's all in one and super easy to configure. I know here at BrightPattern, I worked, with the people who created some of the leading cloud and on-premise solutions in the past years, the companies I've worked with. And really the reason I came to BrightPattern was I was excited about the technology. We've had customers that we've been able to turn on literally in the simplest implementations in days or weeks. So I think having a very easy to deploy contact center that's very nimble and easy for your employees as well is really key. It can be done quickly.
Thanks, Ted. I appreciate it. And Sally, I know you have a lot of experience with various vendors besides BrightPattern. You've seen the premise, you've seen the cloud stuff. Any advice that you can give organizations if they were to look for something in-house and to maybe stand it up quickly, but also some tips to watch out for?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've been doing is publishing a series of blogs just to help share our experience with this, because we're constantly implementing new programs, and each time it's like a new implementation from the start, from the technology to the home office. So, I would say honestly, the easy part is the technology. And that sounds like an infomercial, but what we're trying to share is also, here are all the home office requirements that you need to consider. I'm in my son's room at the moment, so this is not a highly secure facility. But we really are sharing things like their technology policy, meaning for their home. Do they have a door that closes? Do they have a shredder? Do they have a wired computer? Do they have a noise canceling USB headset? And all of the other technology requirements that come with their computer, so that so that we've done our part, that when they connect with the software for servicing clients, that the work has been done. So we're trying to truly just help everyone by sharing our expertise in a series of sort of blogs and podcasts.
Thank you. Yes, I love the content VIP Desk pushes out. I read all your blogs, and I think they're super helpful for the industry. So thank your team for that. A lot of companies, and I'll ask you because I think it dovetails into your response, your previous response, Sally. A lot of companies are moving to remote workforces, and just to keep their agents obviously safe during the pandemic, giving the new social distancing and shelter-in-place orders. So you touched on some of that stuff. How can you help your agents stay safe during the pandemic, and by setting up a remote workforce?
Well, how we keep them safe is a tall order, but we definitely are focused on their care. Um, some of it is our communication rhythms that we have employed with, and again, we're trying to share these with the world, right? All of our meetings are on video. All of our daily huddles start with our gratitude. Like, it's more of a human connection, and our practices around that. And then we've really worked on our culture with having a remote workforce since 2001. And now we're finding the need to up the ante even more with more activities that bring people together, like happy hours. We're doing tomorrow morning a coffee hangout for a short bit with everybody in the company. We're doing a virtual cooking class. We're doing, virtual book club, and just trying to do more that's of the care and feeding of them as a person, and trying to support them in this new environment. We wrote a blog about, how to keep your sanity, and it's like we've worked with a remote team for a long time, but our own team hasn't experienced what everybody's experiencing today, which is their kids are in the environment, their spouses are in the environment, sometimes their parents are in their home. So trying to give them tips on how to manage all of that. Make a stop sign so your kids don't come into the office when you're in the middle of a conference call, those sorts of things. So really just looking out for the care and feeding and well-being of the team.
Yeah, well, having known you for several years, as a matter of fact, when I first met you, the first thing I heard from you was that your frontline agents were treated well, and that they felt welcome and they felt valued, and you're very focused on your team. So that's admirable. Thank you for that. And Ted, what are your thoughts on that? How do we help agents stay safe during the pandemic and while we're setting up this remote workforce?
Pete, it's interesting. I had some notes that I had jotted down, and they were more technology related. And things along the lines of, just as you need to make sure the employees have all the right tools in their home office location, we need to make sure we also have the contact center platform aligned with how they need to work. We can't have like siloed operations if you have agents at home and they're in another location, and have those silos appear to the customer. So those were some of the things I wanted to talk about. But actually, after hearing what Sally just said, I really want to echo what she said, because I really think there's so much goodness in what you just said, Sally. What I mean by that is, if you think about it, we are so many companies. The contact center represents your brand, and many of the people, some of the most passionate people about customer experience that I've known. And when I first came in the industry 15 years ago and thought I'd be here like 2 years and head back to a different part of high tech, I was most excited about some of the customers and the people who are passionate about customer experience. And without going down the rat hole too far, I think what Sally just mentioned, these are social people. We have people who are the front lines and the face of our companies in the contact centers. They tend to be very social. They tend to be very passionate people. And I think all the things that Sally just mentioned, I love, like the cooking class. As someone who loves to cook, hearing that story, things that are all about the people and helping, nourish some of their social needs in these times. And maybe this is a little off topic, but I really love what you just said, Sally, because I think it's all about keeping them healthy, but also empowering them and helping, fulfill the people needs they have. And so I love some of the things you guys are doing there at VIP Desk. Really, really good.
Thanks, Ted. It sounds like Sally has a lot of good communication going on in the organization, across the operation. And, some of this has already been answered, but maybe you could go a little further, Sally, on what recommendations you have for keeping the communication strong with the remote workforce, and not only with the workforce, but maybe even with your customers and clients, people that typically you would meet live and in person. We all had a lot of travel schedules and road shows this year, the ICMIs, the CCWs, and those are all on pause. But What recommendations do you have for keeping that communication strong with the workforce?
Well, one of the things that we're doing, I'm glad you brought up clients because that's consuming a big part of our focus. So one of the things that we're doing is every other morning I'm sending out a little short, like 3-minute video to share with our team. Here's what's happening with the client. So yes, we're doing all these great things around their care and feeding, but they're still worried about their jobs and they want to know what's happening with the businesses that we support because they're being impacted. Some have see, you know, the impact in that it's causing more volume, but some are seeing a decrease. So they're really worried about that. So I think constant communication in every way, maybe too much. They'll start to tell me, stop, please. But on the client side, we moved very quickly into a mode where we, all day long, we're talking to our clients and adapting. So for example, we're finding more people are starting to contact the brands on the weekend probably because they have children in their home and they're busy during the week and handling all of this. So the volume is shifting. So we're shifting our hours of operation for clients. We're shifting our channels. You know, if more people were seeing more in the form of chat, I mean, chat was already popular, but now phone is coming down a little and chat is going up. So just being like literally nimble with our IVR and our channels and, you know, really helping the clients and then kind of circling back to the team and saying, you know what, we're steady. We may need to adjust schedules. They may need accommodations because now they have kids at home, but we're saying things like, here's what the clients need. Now it's shifting. Can you shift? Can you work on the weekends? And just trying to really, I feel like we're the match.com of the customer care world. Like, here's a brand, they have a need, here's a great team. And we just, right now it's changing every week, if not sooner. So that's, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah, definitely. And you, Ted?
So I think from a technology standpoint, I think one thing that's really key as well. I know we all use, I use both Slack and Microsoft Teams here at work to communicate with different groups that we work with, inside and outside the company. So I think as part of this, even a lot of times people learn how to respond to certain issues through coffee chat conversations in a contact center, whatever it may be. But I think even having the ability where employees can maybe bring in other, like agents can bring in other agents via Slack or Microsoft Teams if they have a question. So using some of those kinds of simple technologies, I think can be very helpful. I also think without being in a group of people, maybe even some of the gamification technologies and approaches can be useful to try to keep up, some of the energy that normally occurs in a contact center. And I think, not to, hit on the point again too hardly, but I love, this idea of, even at Bright Pattern, we did our first, thanks to Shelby, whose idea it was, we did our first virtual happy hour. Pete, you were part of it last week. And my son and my daughter and his wife, who live like 30 miles away from me here in the Bay Area, we did our family happy hour after that. So I think this idea of doing these happy hours, I think is a great idea because the other thing, we crave people in contact centers who maybe crave some human interaction. I think the other thing to do is just, we need to appreciate people. So even taking a few minutes at the end of the week to, clink our glasses, even if we're going to break our computer screen as we do it, or just say, hey, thanks for the effort this week, guys. I know you're dealing with a different environment. You're dealing with new stresses. Like Sally had mentioned the stop sign. You might have people popping into your office. But I think taking a few minutes just to say thank you to the people we work with at the end of the week is a really good idea as well.
If I could tag along with that, we use Teams as well, Microsoft Teams. I think I wrote about it in a blog. And we have social chat rooms in it. And we've seen, for example, we have a wellness room, a book club room, a pets room. And those are really exploding now because especially the wellness room, tips on, meditation practices and online fitness classes and daily habits and breathing techniques and all kinds of self-care is being shared between the team. And then we use it to do shout outs for each other. We call it Cheers for Peers. And that's always been popular, but I think, it's a simple tool. I think we use it for, our video meetings and our calendar and these chat rooms. And that's how we stay connected throughout the day, even in operations. So if you work on a program, they may be in the Bright Pattern platform, but they're also using the chat rooms to communicate with our team, which is, sort of think of it as the floor of a call center. And then we've set up these sort of social chat rooms since we don't have water coolers. So, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm like, we probably do a million things that as you talk, I'm like, oh yeah, and we do this and we do that. So I think it's
Yeah,
worth
thank
sharing.
you for adding that. If I'm imagining myself listening to this as a viewer, and there's a lot of value being brought here, and it's so interesting to hear how you do that. It sounds like a fun place to work too, by the way. I think, and I know that you're used to having your teams work remotely. Sally, you've been doing it, as you mentioned, since '01. But for companies who are just moving there, yeah, what are the tips for training the remote workforce? I mean, just maybe you're even bringing on some new people. I know you have some strong training programs for your new customers and things. What are your tips for remote training?
Well, the number one tip is keep the class small. I mean, this is going to sound like obvious, or maybe not, but I think class sizes of 12 or smaller are really effective. And I think shifting away from you could get into a slippery slope where you have an instructor just reading a PowerPoint, right? So we're moving more in the direction of having facilitators where they're learning content and then they come together in smaller groups um, to exchange the knowledge and practice what they've learned. So we've definitely adapted in the remote environment, and training is one of those areas that I think probably is the most difficult for people to imagine. Oh, well, don't I need to see that product? Is like, if I've heard that a million times, I can't even tell you. And it's not really about that. It's about education and knowledge and relatability, um, in story sharing. It's really bringing the people in a far more robust way, and a lot more, like, we probably spend a lot more time in this, what people would refer to as soft live, where smaller groups give them smaller opportunities to keep rehearsing and practicing. um, you know Scheduling training to occur when you're hiring, because I think for a few years we would hire people and then we expect them to go through training, like they might be coming in for an evening and weekend kind of shift and then thinking they could go through training during the day, which makes no sense, right? Because they might have another job. So just thinking out logically, I think, is the best words of wisdom. Small classes, having the sessions happen. I think people love to be connected. So, having them on video, of course. Did I say that? We do all our meetings on video. Bringing the human element to training too. We always start our meetings, not every single meeting, but our morning huddles, with our gratitude. So it's just like creating a human connection, especially for new people, so they get the sense that we're going to support them through it. Because in a remote learning environment, it's sometimes a little bit more tricky because they're not, they can't have an instructor walk up and sit right next to them.
Yeah, thanks. That's some great advice, and I love the varying viewpoints too. You have omnichannel contact center as a service, a manufacturer here with Bright Pattern, but you also have a BPO that serves a lot of different customers. And of course, I've heard you refer to your team as brand ambassadors, and that'll tell you how each program they work on is very customized and requires a lot of training. So, great tips there. Ted, any thoughts on training? I know you spent a lot of time, running marketing across some large organizations. And frankly, you've probably been called in by teams to create video training modules and things like that. What are your thoughts on training remote workforce?
Pete, on this one, I'm actually going to take a little bit of a different viewpoint. I think of like some of the most I think of a person who she's a vice president of customer experience at a company I've worked with for many years and known. And part of her secret ingredient, and they've won JD Power Awards for customer experience. They've won like awards like Best Large Contact Center for it globally at CCW. And to me, a lot of it is that people approach and like things like that we just heard from Sally that they're doing there. To me, I think one of the biggest things that maybe you can do with a lot of the folks is to, even as you coach them, it's not really about the technology in this case. I think it's more about recognizing that, you know, a lot of the people who are calling in or chatting or coming into the contact center now, they're maybe under some additional stress, and you know, it's the contact center job can be a tough job sometimes, and you're getting people who are maybe coming and they're being a little bit more difficult to work with. So I think just even, you know, training and reminding our workforce to say, when someone comes in to say, hey, Pete, I know you've been a customer for a long time, and in these times that have been more difficult, we really appreciate your business. I know I'm going out tonight to pick up a pizza at a Della Rosa pizza place here in the East Bay. And I went in there last week, and there was like no one in there for the takeout. And I said, well, you know, we got to make sure we're supporting the restaurants. And the guy who was there actually gave us a bottle of wine on the way out. He appreciated that we cared about his business. So I think our contact center agents, even to our customers, if they take that extra moment in these times to recognize that it's not business as usual, it's not, but maybe to take a few extra minutes and say, hey, we really appreciate your business, and we're here to help you. You know, even just recognize and say a few things like that, I think can go a long way toward the customer experience. So just, you know, being on our employee side, being on our agent side, maybe coaching them to, you know, to treat customers with a little added respect. Not that added respect should ever be added, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've spoken with a lot of customers that have experienced a huge spike in call volume. You know, we have a major airline as a customer, and they use our omnichannel platform, and chat is going off the charts now. And also all their customers are calling them to reschedule all their travel. While at the same time, this airline is fortunate enough to do a lot of cargo business, and that business is actually scaling up. So you really have two things happening at the same business that are, you know, in opposite directions, and one's a profit center and one's not. So, you know, I wonder, you know, how can call centers use the remote workforce or the digital channels or the self-service channels to supplement their current agents? I mean, how can they deal with this spike in volume? I'll ask you first, Ted, but you can imagine one of the answers is find a great BPO. I think we know that, but just any other ideas on how they can adapt to I mean, some of the examples I've seen are companies that have not done web chat. We've had a lot of people call us recently and say, is chat included in my license? Yes, it is. Well, how can we turn it on? Very easy. So we're starting to companies that said, I don't want to allow my agents to web chat. I don't think it's great. Now, because of the surge in volume, maybe they're switching channels, but, you know, can you give us an idea of, you know, how they can deal with this surge in call volume?
Sure, absolutely. So first, you know, it's interesting when I think of self-service and AI, I think that's a key part of it. But I want to start with the chat example that you mentioned first, Pete. So I think, you know, chat's a great way to handle interactions digitally in a way to supplement what you're doing. Because if you're on a call, you can only take one call at a time. But with a chat, you might be able to handle, if the interactions are relatively simple, you might be able to handle, like, you know, maybe 4 different interactions at the same time. So I think the digital channels, when you're getting these incredible volumes of calls coming into the contact center, are certainly one way to be more efficient. I think also, you know, especially if, you know, with some of these, if you're like an online retail or a in-store retailer, for example, and you're used to offering this incredible, you know, service, you know, even maybe things like video chat, or maybe some things that, you know, can be used to present a more personable face, a more personal face to your customers. So I think, you know, chat's clearly one of those digital channels that can help. I think using digital channels such as like SMS notifications about orders being placed, you know, that Amazon does such an incredible job with. I think those are other channels that can help free up. Like even I got a notification from an airline, as you mentioned, regarding a flight change. that prevented me from calling into the organization because I got the text from them. So I think a lot of those digital channels are key. I think also from a self-service standpoint, AI can be really huge, like a conversational, like we all get frustrated by IVRs where they ask you, you know, to hit what button, and everyone loves self-service, but if you ask people how many people here love an IVR, most people won't raise their hand. But I think AI with some of these new technologies like a conversational IVR that lets the customer speak freely in their own language, and then the AI can identify the intent and then route that person to the right skilled agent for help. Or the AI IVR, conversational IVR, can do some basic triage, gather basic information, and then pass that information to the agent is another way you can take some of the workload off the agent side as well. So I think this balancing of using digital channels to more effectively service customers combined with the agents, it makes it a win-win where it helps the customer and it also makes the workflow easier for the agents who are being inundated by calls.
Yeah, great point, Ted. And you know, surge in volume certainly will probably lead to a surge in calls to BPOs like VIP desks. So I'm sure you're getting those calls now, Sally. And can you give us an idea of how you recommend them handling the surge besides just passing off that overflow, or maybe a combination of both, possibly?
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, as Ted mentioned, chat is a really good lever. So in programs where we see a surge, we're like, okay, take up their number of simultaneous chats that they can each handle, right? It's not going to be perfect, but and then when the volume's lower, like this morning, we said, okay, on a couple of programs, you know, why don't we take that chat down so we can just take our time to deliver a better customer experience now that we have the opportunity to do so. We're repositioning the team to do sort of service recovery techniques, which, you know, these are all kind of like techniques on the side where the volume is down, on techniques on the side where the volume is up. We're adapting the channels. We also have AI incorporated in several programs where the focus has really been internal for our team so that they are served up more consistent answers and can go a lot faster, especially for email. And that's probably a whole nother webinar, like the death of email. But those are the things that we're doing, like trying to allow the team to be more efficient so they can expand their capabilities for the client and handle more interactions when times are tough and volume is high.
Great, thank you for that. You know, I'll tell you another thing that I'm hearing, a lot of common concern that I'm hearing is about how to track and evaluate the agent performance while the agent is working remotely. And I'm sure you can give us some feedback on that since you've been doing it successfully for quite a while. How can managers and supervisors really track that agent activity and provide the right feedback and coaching to the agents, the remote agents?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think this is a whole webinar in and of itself. I mean, that is
We're going
the
to hold you to that.
that would be my pleasure. Honestly, we spend a lot of time with the various tools that are incorporated with Bright Pattern, from Stella to the data that's coming out of NPS and a variety of companies that have voice of the customer. So we have a full, I would call it 360 kind of experience with regards to quality. I think the days of an old kind of Excel spreadsheet where you score a call about 6 days after it happened and nobody can remember and the team member can't listen to it is really outdated. So leaning heavily on customer provided feedback and doing a 360 with the team. And this week, some of the teams have more time to be able to do self-evaluations. So they're doing their own quality monitoring, just like we call them success leaders. And then they're going through that with their manager. And that's very helpful too. So a lot of different factors come into play with quality.
We're holding you to that webinar, Sally, and
Yeah.
thank you. How about you, Ted?
So it's interesting. One thing I love about these kinds of conversations is it's great to share things, but I always learn something new. And I mean, even when I go to some of the different industry events, if we're not learning every day, we're not, we're not growing, and we're not really living in a lot of ways, not to get philosophical, but what I'm really hearing, even just from Sally, you know, I sit on the technology side of things and I get really excited about the technology. We've got amazing technology. But the one thing, before I jump into answering that question, that I think is really key, I think one reason you see companies like a VIP desk that, you know, serve some of the leading high quality brands, it's not just the technology that makes for a great customer experience. It's when you have the quality people, the training that Sally had mentioned, you know, the approaches to communicate internally. I think when you put those people-centric approaches together with incredible technology, that's the secret to really offering a great customer experience. Not to be on a soapbox too much, but when you see that combination of great technology with great people and great ideas come together, that makes all the difference. Because I've seen companies with great technology and they don't offer a great customer experience because they're lacking, you know, some of the things that Sally mentioned. But in terms of, you know, really tracking agent activity and providing feedback, I think first off, I'm going to use a phrase, omnichannel quality management. Most companies today only measure the quality of the voice channel, and when they do it, it's typically about 1% of the interactions in voice are measured. And we're in a new digital world, yet most of the digital channels are ignored from a quality standpoint. So there's a huge gap in terms of managing quality management. And then, as Gartner will tell you, most interactions, as Sally mentioned as well, are really graded after the fact when it's too late to act or when you've forgotten. So I think one of the things that's really key now is you need to have an omni-channel quality management solution that maybe lets you use AI to measure 100% of interactions on every single channel. So AI can see things like sentiment, or perhaps after a given interaction, you provide a very simple breadcrumb survey, not unlike your Lyft app where you give 1 to 5 stars. So after an interaction, serve up a simple survey, low effort survey, 1 to 5 stars. And then in your contact center platform, if sentiment is low or CSAT through a survey is low, you can immediately route that interaction through a business rule to the supervisor, where the supervisor can then review the recording of that interaction, and then in real time or almost real time, score and grade and coach that agent so the agent's helped immediately before that agent maybe, pardon the pun with the coronavirus, before the agent impacts 2,000 other people because they weren't coached up to the level they could have been. So basically, this idea of using AI and omni-channel quality management to evaluate in real-time interactions and then route interactions that could be improved to the supervisor for immediate training in interactions on every channel, I think is a key technology approach. So the people approach Sally mentioned, coupled with that technology approach, omni-channel quality management, I think is key. And we're excited in BrightPattern to have both the omni-channel quality management capability coupled with the omni-channel customer conversation capability as well. So having it all in one platform makes life easier for everybody.
Yeah, well, you know, there are best of breed solutions out there that certainly can do things like that, but especially you mentioned nimbleness and agility. So wanting to change channels, shift traffic, change your IVR, change your messages, change your business hours and things like that. It's nice to have a platform that has native channels all the way throughout. You know, I think I remember hearing a lot of CCW about taking advantage of the business moment. And that's super key. This hitting on what you said, Ted. There's a moment in time where you have the best chance to not only coach that agent, but after you listen to that, you can say, oh, we need to give this guy a call back, or maybe we need to shoot him an SMS or shoot her, you know, an email with a coupon or whatever it may be. Just the opportunity to pick your channel and do it right at that business moment when it's more effective, you know. So, you know, we're getting close here. I want to throw one more question out there, and you know, I know I'm pretty familiar with the BPO space, and I know that primarily, and Sally, I'll ask you this, primarily when you take on a program, many times the large retailer or the brand is going to tell you, hey, this is the platform that you're going to use. This is what we use. And your team actually has the capability and the skill set and the experience to work not only with BrightPattern, but with all the leading solutions that are out there. I understand that. But how do you choose the right technology platform? And I know you had to make a decision at some point on, who you wanted to choose when your customers come to you and say, we don't even have a system, we want to use yours. So I'll ask you first, Sally, how do you choose the right technology platform for that remote workforce? What goes into that?
Well, I'll tell you, we don't love it when the clients want us to be on their platform because, we've been there, right? This has been a long journey. We've been on the premise. We've been on systems where they're isolated. They're not really true omni-channel. They're not really pure cloud. I think we've been on quite a journey to get to the point that we are now. We're quite committed to it. So I'm kind of proud of us from the beginning, knowing that this was coming and that the rest of the world would catch up. So for us, we wanted a system that was easy, fast, had omni-channel, had all of the features that we could customize for each program because each brand is different. They have and constantly changing. We want to be able to adapt for them. So we don't have too many programs where we're asked to be on their platform. So we're grateful for that because then we're at the mercy of all kinds of issues, right? And then that affects the people, and then you get me going on that whole topic again. Um, so we're quite happy. I mean, I don't think, this is a plug, I don't think we've had a single outage in 5 years. Literally, that is a sheer miracle. And I think about, we used to hop on like these hotline calls with 20 people trying to figure out what was happening. So we knew what we were looking for, and I think agility, flexibility, truly being in the cloud, evolving platform, easy for the tech team to integrate, like with all, as a BPO, I should have said that at the beginning. Each program has different needs, whether they're working with Medallia or they're working with Clarabridge, who's a partner, or they're working with Stella or Zendesk. So all of these integration points, and then our workforce management platform, right? We're like integrating LoxySoft, so we have real-time adherence data and all of that glorious fun stuff that comes with the BPO space. I think that all came into play, and we knew what we didn't want. And I think thanks to some of our clients that helped us figure that out too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Ted, I know you're always able to be vendor agnostic and just kind of go into, the basics of how to choose the right technology. Can you give some clarity on that from your perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Pete. So I think the first thing I think that's really important to highlight is, to me, it's really the key enabler of both a single continuous conversation across channels, true omni-channel, as well as for the omni-channel quality management, where you can review, quality by channel, see if your bots are maybe poor with sentiment, but your normal human chat is very good. So having native channels on the platform, and it's interesting, not just for now, but for the future. So for example, we find that, especially like in Asia, like, WhatsApp or certain other, or Latin America, certain applications and new channels, or like Facebook Messenger, are going to be very important. And I was doing a talk in the Bay Area at LinkedIn's headquarters, and we had a person from Google there, and her fear, it was amazing. Her big fear was what's going to be the next new channel. We feel like we've got it all perfect now, but what's going to be the next new channel that will suddenly now break my contact center platform and create a new silo? So I think having all the channels native to the platform are really key, because it gives you the ability to communicate now, but also in the future. I think also, fast time to deploy an ROI. We were very excited. G2 Crowd at the end of last year rated BrightPattern as having the highest ROI in the industry and the fastest time to deploy. Everybody talks fast and easy, but that was from customers' views. So we were very excited about that. And then probably all important is you need to make it easy for agents. It's not just customer effort, it's agent effort. And I remember, Pete, you were at that CCW Journey workshop that we led, where there was a hotel chain. They had 11 desktops for their agents. So giving the agents a single unified desktop that they can see the entire conversation. Making it easy for the agents is so key. And now in today's world, having even an AI-powered omnichannel agent desktop where, Sally mentioned how they're using AI to provide assistance to the agents is really key as well. So just to summarize, having the channels native, super fast and easy to implement, AI to help agents, and then all important, having a simple interface, a single omnichannel agent desktop to make it easy for agents, I think are key.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ted. And I'll just add that I think some deep discovery and some real, spending some real time with that vendor and walking through your real life scenarios. I think a lot of people go out there and say, show me what you got, instead of leading with your business, leading with your, how are your agents skilled and what programs do you have? Is it inbound, outbound? What integrations are there? So being able to really give a potential vendor as much information as they can so that they can, have, you don't discover these things after you implement. Oh, I didn't ask you about that. So deep discovery and open discovery is really something we enjoy doing. So, I really want to thank everyone for joining us today. It's our hope that we were able to deliver some expertise that helps your organization through these tough challenges. And, we're all experiencing this. I want to thank Sally and Ted very much for taking the time to put this together. And I'd also like to thank our customers and our partners that allow us to help them with their new and unique business challenges. That's what we're here for. We're passionate about it, and we will come through this. And so I just encourage you maybe to take a look at VIP Desk blog. That's very active and very helpful. And Bright Pattern, we also have some really, hopefully some helpful, we have a new ebook out and things like that. So take a look at that. And on the screen now, we're also sharing the contact information for both of our panelists. And I know both of them are always willing to help with a no strings attached discussion. That's the type of people they are. So thank you both very much. And thanks everybody for joining.
Thank